smash the like button, and subscribe. Okay, so why do you support Trump?
I support Trump, not so much for his character, which is obviously clearly flawed. I would say it's more so just for policies that I think are more beneficial for our country. Things like the security of the country. I would say overall, I would say in regards to I would say top three security. Then it's going to be on top of that basically abortion, which I one of the big things which I don't want to really talk about with you today because you debate it all the time. And the third thing is going to probably be foreign policy.
Okay, few things.
Sure.
How does Donald Trump make our country more secure?
Yeah, in terms of security, I would say that well, I shouldn't say more secure because there's previous administrations that have actually made it more secure. One of them being actually a Democratic president, but I'd say he makes it more secure just because obviously, for the most part, we obviously have a crisis in terms of immigration, and I think that he's handling this problem through ICE, which is obviously facing a lot of backlash.
Okay, do you think Renee Good and Alex Preddy were murdered?
Renee Good, yes. Alex Preddy, I would say no.
So you think Renee Good was murdered?
Oh, wait, I apologize. Sorry, backwards. Alex Preddy.
Yeah, I
yes.
was about to say, I don't think I've ever heard that combination before.
No, completely backwards.
So,
Alex Preddy, no. I would say that Renee Good, I would say that's justified, yes.
wait, you don't think Alex Preddy was murdered?
I think he was, and I think that Renee Good, I think that's a justified case, yeah.
Okay. So do you think that she was trying? What was the justification actually?
Yeah, so the justification was off the initial video that we have, things are obviously open for interpretation, and I held the position that she was potentially murdered under the first camera footage we had. But now that we have the actual footage of her driving towards the officer and actually making contact with him, I think it's justified thereafter. I think it is, man.
Did you read the autopsy report?
The autopsy report I haven't read. When did that come out?
It was I think probably a week or two back. So they determined that the third shot was the one that killed her. Do you know where he was when he shot the third shot?
I believe the third shot would have been to the driver's side of the vehicle window.
Yeah, multiple feet to the driver's side of the vehicle. So the car was clearly not going towards him. That's the shot that killed her. So given that you know that, would you think it's more, especially because, I mean, we could see in the cell phone video of the officer that she was turning right away from him. She backed up, clearly trying to turn away from him. She wasn't trying to run him over. Otherwise, she wouldn't have backed up and tried to go to the right, at least in hindsight. We can see from the video that he saw that she was turning to the right. So he could make that determination. And then it was clear that he started reaching for his gun prior to her even moving forward in the first place, when he clearly could have jumped out of the way to a greater extent. Like any reasonable person in that circumstance would have done that. Hell, a GTA NPC would have done it better.
Right. Okay. All right. So, let me address this. Okay. So I would say that obviously when it comes to reasonable force, see, the thing here is that maybe you're more well versed on this, but when it comes to actual ICE agents and their protections, okay, I don't know what is considered reasonable force on their level in comparison to like a police officer. Okay. So the third shot from the side, if this was like a police officer or something like that, I would say it's probably not justified in that third shot. Now, the shots prior were. Now, if you're making the argument that the third shot is what killed her, I'm just curious too on the autopsy when they released this. How were they able to come to the conclusion the third shot is what killed? Did all the shots hit the above the neck, or were they chest?
Yeah, so that was determined by the people who examined the body in the autopsy. I don't know the exact determinations of them. I'm not specifically medically inclined within that respect.
That's fine.
That would be them to determine it in the circumstance. And it was to her left temple, right? So we know that shot's lethal, right?
Of course, yeah. For the most part.
Yeah, of course. And the other ones, they deemed to not be lethal. So I think that's probably where the deduction is going to come from, at least from my understanding. But again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not the medical examiner. I would always look at the report. That's the best way to do it. I'm just telling you the conclusions that they came to.
Okay. I mean, listen, so to answer that, if the third shot in the autopsy, which I'm going to have to look at, which I haven't seen yet, is the one that they proved to be the fatal one in the actual occurrence, I would just say they're both, I would say they were both actually, yes. Because he had no justification. Well, I've always held a position since it happened that I don't think he was justified to fire off rounds from the side of the vehicle once the vehicle's moving forward.
Yeah.
There's no way you can really show justification for that. But the front shots, I think there was some form of justification, yes.
Okay, for sure.
I'm just curious when you're asking, are you basically saying, okay,
so that means you think it's then. Okay, so then you think both
Yeah.
are. So then,
Yeah.
how do you feel about the Trump administration saying both of them were domestic? Like, for example, like Kristi Noem saying that, for example, Alex Preddy was a domestic trying to take out as many agents as he possibly could.
Right. Okay. That's crazy. Okay. So here's the thing. Okay. I think I can hold two positions at the same time because they aren't mutually exclusive. I believe that I can hold to that ICE, okay, is a net positive for our country while also denouncing and saying that these people, and the Trump administration is saying things to like make up for this that is obviously are clearly blatant bullshit, okay? Now, when it comes to Alex Preddy, we have obvious other videos of him trying to basically antagonize. Now, here's the thing: everyone's saying it's AI. Those aren't AI. Do you think those are AI or no? The videos
The
of
video of
him.
Alex Preddy, no, it was verified by the family. So
Okay, great.
okay. So the reason why so many people think it's AI is because there was another AI video that looks very similar to it that was going
Sure.
around that clearly is AI.
Gotcha. Okay.
So people
Yeah.
were
So I would
assuming,
say.
people were thinking that that was the video, and then they were like, "Oh, this is obviously AI because that's the one that they saw." Right? So
Sure.
there was two different ones coming out. So the family did
Okay.
make that determination.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. No. Like, to answer your question directly, you're saying, well, how do I feel about the Trump administration saying these people were obviously things like that or domestic? I don't know. It's obvious that's obviously ridiculous. Okay. But on the same token here, the problem that we have is that I don't see why you can't like or not you, but like people on your side just don't seem to understand is that we're having these protests to some extent borderline riots, okay? And it's putting people in these situations that are just violent that they shouldn't be in, okay? If we have ICE in these cities that is trying to like arrest, or basically deport these people, why are we intervening? Why are we putting ourselves in these
Can I
situations,
tell you
man?
something?
But
If they weren't doing that, we wouldn't have had these videos that showed
so
that they
did,
were lying. Genuinely.
sorry,
Like,
can
if they
you,
weren't recording them, we wouldn't have
okay,
had these videos, and we wouldn't
okay,
have known that they were lying, and people would have bought the lies. So
okay.
you
So you're
asked,
saying
why do people do this? And I
okay,
think that serves as evidence.
gotcha. I think okay. So I think a better question for you is that obviously you don't denounce and disagree with ICE in and of itself prior to Trump administration, right? I'm sure you. Let's say you like prior to Trump's first administration, did you at least to some extent have support for ICE?
No, I
Or
disagree with ICE. I disagree with ICE and how it's
okay,
structured in our federal government because it allows for Donald Trump to weaponize it and for bad presidents to weaponize it because it gives too much power to the executive. So I think there's still a role for border enforcement. It's just I think they should be focused on people who have committed violent crimes and bad crimes, and I think that they should be structured in the government in a manner in which they're upheld to the judicial and not executive, legislative. Rather than specifically the executive, I think you should only be able to make determinations on changes through legislation. Does it make sense?
okay. No, it makes sense. Okay, so you're saying, well, I mean, you're young, right? Well, you must be like 21, 22.
I'm 23. I'm turning 24 in 2 months.
Okay. Okay, so like prior to like, so you were pretty young when the first Trump administration happened, but you're saying you disagree with ICE fundamentally because of that. But you're saying it should be able to focus on like criminals, like people that did certain crimes. You're saying?
Yeah, like for example, like under the Obama administration, it was like significantly more likely that they were going after people who have committed violent crimes.
Okay. Okay, so you're saying that. Okay, so you're saying for Obama, he was basically focusing on people doing violent crimes, in comparison to Trump, who's basically saying if you're illegal or if you're not documented, you should go. Just period.
Repeat what you just said. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So like you're basically saying that you were in support to some extent, but not entirely, of like Obama when he was deporting people, but there was basically they had some sort of history of violent crimes or like very like serious
Yeah,
crimes.
if there's
In
people who have
comparison
committed
to Trump.
serious and violent crimes, they should totally be deported. Yeah, I don't dispute that.
Okay.
Now, there are definitely disagreements I have with Obama. Like, I don't think that they completely upheld due process in the manner I would like. I don't think they completely deported everyone I would have wanted deported. I think that some circumstances they deported people they shouldn't have deported.
Yeah.
But significantly better than the Trump administration. I think there's a significant distinction. They were
Okay.
going after significantly more violent criminals and people who have committed serious crimes.
Is there okay? Like I said, you can ask me any questions if you want to. I'm just kind of trying to pick your brain here. Is there any concern for you that if like we had it the way you wanted it, where I'm assuming there's some sort of deconstruction of the entire ICE in and of itself. how do we really go about what department would go about handling these criminals you're speaking of? So yeah, let's throw out the
Well,
window the
I told
people
you
who
there would
are
be border
violent.
enforcement. I just think that the border enforcement should be tied and structured in the government to where it's specifically focused through by being held accountable by the judicial and the legislative, so that we
Yeah.
have more checks and balances within the system. That the executive doesn't have so much authority over it.
Okay. No, I see what you're saying, but like
I don't disagree with border enforcement, though.
with border enforcement, but you're saying
Yeah,
once it kind of crosses over, that's kind of where like the problem
yeah.
is that ICE in and of itself kind of handles once it's already gotten past that point. That would be kind of the problem. So I'm just asking how we address like how would you go about in your worldview addressing the problem once it goes past border enforcement? So border enforcement can stop these things, but if people are entering our country and they are the people in which you speak of, like, and I'm saying you're not saying they are, but let's say there is a bad criminal, what department then would handle getting rid of these people that are actually a danger to the society?
I
Because
just told
obviously,
you. I just told you. I agree with a system that specifically goes after people
okay,
but it should be tied to to the legislative and to the
okay,
judicial in terms of who's holding them accountable and how you change policy in association with them.
okay. So I see what you're saying. Okay, so like, see, well,
Like
I guess like,
we don't dispute that there should be an agency that deals with this. I just
mhm.
disagree with it being a part of something that's affected and able to be changed by the president because it grants the president too much executive power
Okay.
where they're not held accountable to other branches of the government to the degree that they should be.
Okay. Yeah, I
Does that
mean,
make
yeah.
sense?
So
Emily, I appreciate the
no, it does
galaxy.
make it does make
Thank you.
sense, and I'm inclined to agree with you to some extent because obviously Trump has taken this to extreme measures, and I will agree with that because I've been like, but we can also see within his own party in his cabinet that obviously they're realizing he's taken this to extreme measures that are probably like regrettable. Okay, but it's like if I just don't know how we would actually reform it. I know you've mentioned how you want to see it happen, but I
I
don't
thought
know
I
how
gave
we.
very specifics.
You
I
did.
thought I
You
gave
did.
very good specifics.
You did. You do. You gave very good specifics,
Like there
man.
needs to be
I think
more accountability. They shouldn't be racially profiling. They shouldn't be detaining people who specifically just have an accent, right? They shouldn't be U.S. citizens and justifying it and calling them domestic, right?
sure.
Like if they were focusing on going and trying to get the worst of the worst, no one disagrees with that. The reason
Sure.
why people need to feel like they need to do, for example, Ice Watch, is because
Mhm.
of the fact that there's a lack of accountability and these things aren't recorded.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Again, I'm inclined to agree with you to some extent because, yeah, I can see where the actual logic is here. It's just also that the problem is that, like, how do we actually know? So let's just say Trump's going after the administration is trying to take care of like the immigration crisis or the illegal immigration crisis. How do we know when they're out there, they're not actually trying to arrest or detain an actual serious criminal? Because we do have videos, and again, this is like he or she say, but we have videos of like ICE officers saying we're trying to arrest a child offender. Okay, we're here to arrest a child offender, and people are like impeding this. So it's like we don't have a way to really quantify or to know if the person that is in question they're trying to
And that's
arrest
a
is a
fault
serious.
of the authority figures creating conditions in which have led to this because of lack of accountability, because of the way that they're acting, because of the fact that they're not using warrants, because of the fact that they're violating due process rights, because of the fact that
Okay.
they're murdering people on the streets without due process and accountability. So you understand that you all of these things contribute to people limiting ICE from doing what they're doing, and then that's going to limit them from being able to hold accountable the worst of the worst. That's actually an evidence not of the fact that the protesters are in the wrong, but the fact that the authority is in the wrong, that it created the circumstance in which it led to this.
Okay, fair enough. If you don't mind, I have one more question. I have to go back to work because I'm on break here. I'm at the hospital. So last question I have would just be, and I'm actually genuinely ignorant to this. So maybe you know, maybe you don't. For the Obama administration, or let's say any administration previously, when they went about carrying out these arrests for people, okay, how did they do it? Was it as blatant as Trump was, where he goes in the public, they're just arresting people on the street, or was Obama doing this in a way where it was more discreet? Because like I'm just confused, like why with Trump people are like following them around, and I understand why you told me they're doing it. But with Obama, were they doing this more discreetly? Were they just basically arresting them on the side of the street, or were they doing? How is it occurring?
It
Because
was more discreet. There was more accountability. They weren't doing the same sort of justifications that they're doing. They did it legally to a greater extent. So,
okay,
like, the Obama administration didn't weaponize ICE in the same way that Trump has. They weren't racially profiling specifically, right, through
okay,
claims. That's been literally put into policy. that racial profiling is allowed.
Yeah, that's one thing I heard, but I haven't actually looked into. So you're saying they can actually just basically detain someone based on the color of their skin, or is
So
it?
they say they take it into consideration with other facts, but it can be used as something taken into consideration for detaining someone, which is ridiculous. But they've literally justified, for example, detaining people just for having an accent. And by the way, the DHS came out and literally posted that was the exact reason. They said because of the fact that they heard their accent, they thought it was justified to detain them.
Yes, I disagree with that entirely. That's crazy. I do disagree with that. So, okay, let me look more into that. I appreciate the conversation I had with you, okay? And like I said, you made some very good points. So let me look into that further. Thanks for having me up, man. You take care of yourself, all right?
You as well. Appreciate you coming up.